The words echoed in Dr. Evelyn Reed's mind, not as an accusation, but as a cold, undeniable fact. It hung in the quiet hum of her smart home, a silence now laced with digital deceit. For weeks, a phantom drain had plagued her network, an almost imperceptible drag on bandwidth, a flicker in the router's status light that seemed to pulse with a rhythm that was just wrong. Evelyn, head of digital forensics at Nexus Security Solutions, lived and breathed network integrity. Her home, designed with meticulous redundancy and cutting-edge firewalls, was supposed to be her sanctuary, a fortress against the very intrusions she spent her days combating. She'd first dismissed it as an ISP glitch, then as a misconfigured IoT device, the smart fridge perhaps uploading too many grocery lists, or the automated blinds syncing unnecessarily with a server farm across the continent. But Evelyn's gut, honed by 2 decades of dissecting digital shadows, told her otherwise. The anomaly wasn't random, it was consistent. A persistent, low-level data stream, like a hidden river flowing beneath the polished surface of her domestic tranquility, always there, always active. She began to monitor it discreetly, setting up passive sniffers and honeypots designed to detect even the most sophisticated intrusions. Her personal network, usually a fortress, was now a trap. She expected a botnet, a state-sponsored attack targeting her professional work, perhaps even a vengeful competitor. What she found, buried deep within a nested series of encrypted packets masquerading as routine system diagnostics from her smart thermostat, was far more insidious. The signature of the data stream was highly unusual. It wasn't the brute force of a denial-of-service attack, nor the elegant simplicity of a phishing attempt. This was something engineered with a chilling precision, a ghostly presence that slipped through her defenses like smoke. It was a perfectly crafted, self-healing, self-propagating worm, designed to exist in the liminal spaces of a home network, using minimal resources while continuously siphoning data. Its purpose was unclear at first. It wasn't stealing bank details or personal photos. The traffic analysis showed complex, fragmented data bursts, too abstract for typical theft. The target seemed to be something broader, more systemic. It moved with the stealth of a predator, always shifting its IP, always rerouting through obscure residential proxies, creating a digital maze that would stump anyone without Evelyn's specialized expertise. Then came the metadata, a tiny, almost imperceptible timestamp error in one of the initial handshakes gave her the crucial clue. It was a fragment of code that she'd seen before, an unusual compression algorithm signature linked to a project from her university days, a project her husband Daniel had also worked on, a project they had discussed at length late into many nights, fueled by coffee and shared intellectual ambition. Daniel, her brilliant, often distracted software engineer husband. He worked for Kronos Defense Systems, a notoriously opaque military contractor. His projects were always shrouded in secrecy, his explanations vague, citing national security. Evelyn had always respected the boundary, understanding the nature of his work. Now that boundary felt like a wall, cold and impregnable between them. She felt a tremor of denial, a desperate need to find another explanation. Maybe someone had stolen his code. Perhaps a former colleague had used his work without permission. But the deeper she delved, the more the digital fingerprints coalesced, forming an undeniable portrait. The specific obfuscation techniques, the chosen encryption libraries, the peculiar error handling protocols, these were Daniel's digital idiom, as distinctive as his handwriting. The hidden process wasn't just siphoning data, it was using her home network as an untraceable bridgehead, a silent, secure conduit from her highly fortified civilian network into the public internet, then further into a labyrinth of secure government servers. It was a perfect, almost poetic subversion of trust, leveraging her own advanced security measures against her. She traced the ultimate destination of the data, using forensic tools that pushed the boundaries of legal and ethical gray areas, navigating through layers of proxies and dead ends. The data wasn't going to a black market data broker or a foreign entity. It was flowing, in a controlled torrent into a highly secure, compartmentalized server farm belonging to Kronos Defense Systems. Her stomach clenched. Daniel wasn't merely working on a project, he was testing it. And the object of his experiment, the untraceable bridge, the proof of concept for a highly invasive surveillance system, was their home, their shared life, her trusted network. She was an unwitting participant, her expertise unknowingly exploited to validate his clandestine creation. The implications rippled through her. This wasn't just a breach of privacy, it was a fundamental betrayal, a calculated manipulation of their shared space, their intimacy, for the sake of his career, his classified ambition. She looked around her living room, at the innocuous smart speaker, the seamless integration of technology she had so carefully designed, and saw it transformed into 1,000 tiny watching eyes, a web of silent informants. He was testing a surveillance system on her, in their home. The thought was a chilling echo of a dystopian novel, only this wasn't fiction. This was her reality, woven into the very fabric of their domestic life. Every conversation, every late-night browsing session, every quiet moment of contemplation, potentially recorded, analyzed, archived. Evelyn felt a surge of cold fury, quickly followed by a clarity that settled her racing heart. Her professional integrity demanded action. Her personal betrayal demanded answers. She would dismantle this ghost, brick by digital brick, and she would confront the architect. But first, she needed to ensure the data trail led nowhere back to her, and nowhere near Daniel, until she was ready. The game, she realized, had just begun. She knew Daniel would have built-in fail-safes, PO switches, and alerts for any attempt to uncover his digital phantom. She would need to be smarter, subtler, and infinitely more patient than he could ever anticipate. She had to become a ghost herself, moving unseen within her own network, preparing her counterstrike against the man she slept beside. Evelyn retreated from the command line, physically pulling away from the monitors as if the green glow could contaminate her. The first step was neutralizing Daniel's awareness. She knew his code would be designed to scream a warning if the central process were touched, or if the main data flow suddenly ceased. She couldn't just delete the process. She had to convince the data ghost that everything was fine, stable, and perfectly operational. This required a level of digital mimicry that bordered on performance art. She initiated a custom loop, a phantom traffic generator that perfectly mimicked the signature and volume of the data Daniel expected to see flowing from their house, directing this synthetic noise to the same Kronos server farm. It was a digital curtain call, a simulation of compliance, buying her the necessary time to analyze the ghosts. True payload and architecture without triggering an alarm that would lead to Daniel remote wiping the evidence. She had to become a master manipulator of her own system's heartbeat. The next 48 hours were a blur of caffeine, code, and carefully maintained normalcy in the presence of her husband. She sat opposite him at the breakfast table, discussing mundane work stressors and weekend plans, all while the simulated data stream flowed seamlessly in the background. Daniel seemed unusually relaxed, almost complacent, a confidence that confirmed his belief in the invulnerability of his hidden system. Meanwhile, Evelyn was deep in the network's underbelly, painstakingly mapping the worm's structure. She discovered its true sophistication. It wasn't a single entity, but a swarm of tiny distributed processes, each one communicating via silent, near-ultrasonic frequencies emitted by the network's power supply units, a truly novel method of communication that bypassed standard Wi-Fi logging. It was brilliant, insidious, and terrifyingly thorough. She traced the worm's ingress point to a single innocuous-looking software update for their high-end digital frame, a gift from Daniel 3 years prior. The update had contained the initial payload, a digital Trojan horse waiting dormant for years until Daniel activated it months ago. This long-term planning, this patient waiting, was what truly chilled her. It spoke not of a sudden rush of ambition, but a long-held plan to leverage his access to her life for his professional gain. This level of calculation turned betrayal into a systemic threat. The frame, sitting on her bedside table displaying smiling photos of their vacations, was in fact the master control unit for a surveillance system that extended far beyond simple network logging, encompassing audio and visual capture. Evelyn's forensic analysis of the siphon data revealed the scope of the project. It was a beta test for a fully integrated, non-consensual home surveillance system, codenamed Project Chimera. The fragments she intercepted, transcripts of their private conversations, biometric data captured by the smart lighting, even subtle thermal mappings of their movements, were being fed into an AI designed to construct hyper-accurate, predictive psychological profiles. Kronos Defense wasn't just building a spying tool. They were building a predictive model of human behavior based on the intimate secrets of an unsuspecting, high-value target. And she, Evelyn Reed, was the control subject. She realized she was in a race against two opponents: Daniel, who controlled the system's operational status, and the Kronos AI, which was rapidly consuming and learning from her data. Her only advantage was her superior understanding of outdated, complex security paradigms, the very knowledge Daniel had relied on to think his system was foolproof. She needed to extract the core programming of Chimera to prove its malicious intent, but accessing the Kronos server farm directly was impossible. The path of least resistance was through Daniel's own devices. The opportunity came late one Tuesday night. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch watching a documentary, his work laptop, always meticulously locked, idling beside him. Evelyn approached it with the practiced calm of a bomb disposal technician. She couldn't risk a password guess or a brute force attack. His machine was hardened against that. Instead, she used a custom-built USB tool, a piece of hardware designed to exploit a known vulnerability in the laptop's UEFI firmware, granting her a brief, silent window of administrator access before the operating system loaded its defense protocols.
In that fleeting, high-stakes moment, she bypassed the login and located the staging directory for Project Chimera. She found not just the client-side worm code, but the complete developer notes, project briefs, and most damningly, the signed internal memos outlining the unethical goals of the system and Daniel's pivotal role in testing it on a non-consenting subject, specifically his wife, Evelyn. The documents confirmed everything, detailing the risks and the substantial bonuses tied to successful deployment. She swiftly copied the critical documentation and a complete dump of the worm's source code onto an encrypted drive. As the transfer bar crept forward, her eyes caught a line in the developer notes, a detailed protocol for a hard shutdown initiated via a specific obscure command triggered by a unique biometric sequence. This sequence was tied to the Chimera system's central control unit, the digital photo frame on her bedside table. It was Daniel's remote kill switch, his panic button. The transfer finished just as Daniel stirred on the couch. Evelyn smoothly slid the USB drive into the pocket of her robe, closed the laptop, and placed it back on the table, all while maintaining the serene, sleep-heavy expression of a wife checking on her husband. The performance was flawless. The adrenaline that flooded her system was a testament to the high-stakes risk she had just taken, but she had the evidence, the unassailable proof of his professional betrayal and personal cruelty. She returned to her lab, the secure corner of her basement, and began reviewing the code. The Chimera source was even more terrifying than she had anticipated. It wasn't just surveillance. It was designed to insert personalized, persuasive psychological prompts into a subject's digital life, subtly nudging behavior to achieve a predefined external objective. Daniel wasn't just spying on her. He was running a subtle, years-long experiment in behavioral control.
This realization shifted her motivation from seeking answers to ensuring justice. She couldn't simply confront him. He would destroy the evidence and use his influence at Kronos to discredit her professionally, leveraging the predictive profiles Chimera had already built on her. She had to expose the system's existence and its profound ethical breach in a way that Kronos Defense could not contain or deny.
Her plan solidified. She wouldn't attack Kronos directly. She would use their own creation against them. She would modify the Chimera source code she had stolen, turning the behavioral nudge algorithm inward. She would reprogram the data ghost to self-destruct in a catastrophic, public way that revealed its origin and purpose to an external, neutral party. The challenge was timing the explosion. It had to be during a moment of peak vulnerability for Kronos. She needed an event, a live presentation, or a major press conference that would force Kronos to publicly connect to the very system Daniel had installed in their home, a window of opportunity that would be both traceable and impossible to ignore. She found the date in the project documents, a high-profile live-stream demonstration of Kronos' predictive security platform for potential military investors, scheduled in 3 weeks. Daniel was slated to be the lead presenter, showcasing the efficacy of their technology. This was her stage, her final exhibit. Evelyn began the arduous process of rewriting the core worm logic, embedding her own digital time lock and a payload designed to hijack the demonstration. The code was complex, requiring her to work around Daniel's own protective countermeasures. She had to weave her logic so deeply into the existing worm that Daniel's own diagnostics would weed the self-destruct protocol as a standard update feature. As the days passed, the veneer of their marriage stretched taut. Daniel seemed preoccupied, occasionally checking his laptop with a satisfied smirk. He was planning his triumph. Evelyn, conversely, felt a grim lightness. She was planning her own silent strike. She continued the elaborate digital masquerade, feeding the Chimera system the expected stream of synthetic compliance, waiting for the demonstration day. Her final check of the modified code confirmed the sequence. At the precise moment Daniel would connect his laptop to the Kronos main presentation server, the data ghost would halt its surveillance, broadcast the entire documentation archive, and erase every trace of itself from their home network, leaving only the sound of silence and the cold, hard proof of his betrayal. 3 weeks. The countdown had begun. Evelyn dedicated the next 2 weeks to hardening her digital fortress and minimizing any behavioral shift that might be logged by the lurking Chimera system. She forced herself into the routine Daniel expected: long hours at her own office, casual evenings, and non-committal conversations about his impending presentation. The psychological strain was immense. Every word she spoke felt like a deliberate lie, every touch a calculated act of deception. She ate dinner opposite the man who had turned her life into a laboratory, maintaining a facade of warmth, while beneath the surface, she was running complex cryptographic calculations to ensure the integrity of her embedded payload. She knew the AI was analyzing her microexpressions, her vocal tone, and her sleep patterns. Any deviation from the established Evelyn profile could flag an anomaly and prompt Daniel to investigate his system's performance. Her biggest challenge was the physical access required for the final step. To ensure the complete and untraceable erasure of the Chimera worm from their home network after the broadcast, she needed to physically modify the internal memory of the digital photo frame, the system's control unit, without leaving physical evidence of tampering. She planned to perform a rapid chip swap, replacing the frame's original memory chip, which contained the worm's residual logic, with a blank one, effectively destroying the master key to the Chimera system. This highly delicate operation required Daniel to be away from the house for several hours, a rare occurrence given his deep immersion in the final presentation preparations. The complexity of the payload itself demanded absolute focus. The broadcast archive she planned to unleash wasn't a simple data dump. It was constructed as an encrypted cascade, a file designed to resist immediate interception and destruction. Once triggered, the archive would broadcast simultaneously across dozens of non-standard frequencies, radio, thermal, and low-power Wi-Fi channels, overwhelming Kronos' ability to contain the data instantly. The decryption key was time-delayed and embedded in a specific line of the documentation itself, ensuring that once the documents were fully published, they couldn't be easily retracted or denounced as deepfakes. It was a digital dead man switch, guaranteeing the truth would survive. As the presentation day drew closer, Daniel's confidence bordered on arrogance. He started dropping veiled hints about the revolutionary breakthrough he was about to unveil,
Speaking of predictive behavioral modeling and the future of preemptive security, he was eager for Evelyn to attend the live-streamed event, seeing her presence as a silent testament to his achievement and stability. She politely declined, citing an unavoidable, fabricated commitment to a Nexus security audit in another city. This gave her the perfect.
3 days before the event, Daniel finally left for a crucial all-day rehearsal at the Kronos facility. This was the precise window of opportunity Evelyn had meticulously planned for. She swiftly moved to the bedroom, the digital photo frame, the silent, electronic eye of the betrayal, sitting innocently on her bedside table. Working with the focused precision of a surgeon, she carefully dismantled the frame, exposing the tightly packed circuit board within. Her heart hammered, not with fear, but with the pressure of the clock. She executed the memory chip swap, soldering the new blank chip into the designated slot with microscopic accuracy, permanently destroying the master key to the Chimera system. She then meticulously reassembled the frame, leaving no physical evidence of tampering, no tool marks, and no smudges that a forensic analysis could detect, ensuring the worm's control unit was now blind and inert. She ran a full diagnostics check on the entire home network immediately afterward. The Chimera worm's process was still technically running. The digital zombie was still broadcasting the synthetic compliance traffic she had engineered, but its command core was gone, replaced by a vacuum of memory. This confirmed her success. The local bridgehead was structurally sound but functionally brain-dead, ready for its final programmed task, the spectacular digital self-immolation. Evelyn isolated her own laptop and the encrypted evidence drive, ensuring they could not be inadvertently contaminated or tracked once the operation began. She planned to leave the house herself just hours before the presentation, heading to a secure, untraceable public network access point miles away to launch the final broadcast command. The night before the presentation was the most difficult charade of their marriage. Daniel returned home late, buoyed by the rehearsal's success, and attempted a reconciliation of sorts, a brief, almost perfunctory expression of affection that felt entirely manufactured, a performance of domesticity before his professional peak. Evelyn endured it, maintaining her role as the supportive, unknowing wife, her gaze steady but unreadable. She looked at him, the man she had built a life with, the man whose face she knew better than her own, and saw only the engineer who had valued a professional accolade over her humanity. The personal anguish was now completely subsumed by the necessity of her mission. This was no longer about personal vengeance. It was about stopping the deployment of a deeply toxic and invasive technology before it became institutionalized. She spent the early hours of the presentation day meticulously backing up her legitimate professional work and deleting any files that could potentially implicate Nexus in her actions. She ensured her alibi was solid and left a single encrypted file on her main professional server, a complete, clean documentation of the Chimera worm structure, with a time-delayed release set for 48 hours after the Kronos presentation. This was her final safety net, ensuring that even if Daniel somehow managed to contain the immediate fallout, the truth would eventually resurface through official, institutional channels, guaranteeing Daniel's professional downfall. At noon, 3 hours before the broadcast, Evelyn sent a terse text to Daniel saying she was leaving for her security audit. She then drove, not to the city, but to a small, forgotten university library tucked deep in the suburbs. She connected her laptop to an old public terminal, a network so archaic and poorly maintained that it was virtually invisible to the high-level monitoring Daniel would certainly be running from the Kronos headquarters. This deliberate anonymity was the crucial final layer of security for the broadcast launch. She accessed the live-stream buffer on the public terminal. The Kronos conference room was a scene of corporate opulence, filled with high-ranking military brass and venture capital figures. Daniel, looking sharp and polished in a charcoal suit, stood at the podium, a portrait of confident professional success. The irony was palpable. He was about to demonstrate the pinnacle of surveillance technology, while the one person who truly knew his system's weakness was watching him from a dimly lit corner of a dusty library, preparing to dismantle his entire career. As Daniel began his introduction, Praising the unprecedented accuracy and ethical safeguards of their predictive security platform, Evelyn positioned her fingers over the launch command. The core of his demonstration involved connecting his encrypted laptop, the one she had accessed and modified, to the main Kronos server to display real-time, anonymized data flow. This was the moment of synchronization, the precise juncture where his system would connect the local bridgehead, their home network, to the global network. Daniel clicked a key on his laptop. The massive screens behind him dimmed, and the display switched from the Kronos Wungo to a command prompt, ready to initiate the demonstration. And now, Daniel announced, his voice smooth and professional, filling the hushed auditorium, we will initiate the primary data bridge, showing the real-time operational capacity of Chimera's predictive models. He executed the connection command with a flourish. At that exact nanosecond, Evelyn executed her own command from the library terminal. The modified code in Daniel's laptop instantly activated. Instead of connecting to the Kronos visualization software, the screen behind him flashed, displaying a single, stark, unauthorized message in block capital letters. Chimera initiates self-destruct protocol. A wave of stunned panic rippled through the conference room. Daniel stared at the screen, his polished composure visibly shattering, his face transforming into a mask of pure disbelief and dawning horror. Before the Kronos technicians could rush the stage to shut off the equipment, the laptop screen cleared and began rapidly cycling through the project documents Evelyn had copied, displaying the most damning evidence for the entire livestream to see. Project Chimera beta test subject, Dr. Evelyn Reed, wife of lead engineer. The encrypted cascade, triggered simultaneously with the self-destruct command, began its multi-frequency broadcast. The sheer volume of data, the source code, the developer notes, the internal memos confirming the unethical testing, flooded news agencies, regulatory bodies, and public forums worldwide. The truth, compressed and concealed for years, was now loud, public, and impossible to contain or retract. Daniel was roughly dragged off the stage by Kronos security, shouting in disbelief and denial, his professional life collapsing in a single, devastating moment, orchestrated by the woman he had profoundly underestimated. Evelyn watched the chaos, the digital self-immolation, feeling not triumph or elation, but a profound, necessary sense of closure. The data ghost was gone, vanquished by its victim.
She closed her laptop, disconnected from the university network, and walked out into the afternoon sunlight. The operation was complete. She had protected the integrity of her profession, neutralized a dangerous technology, and permanently reclaimed her home network from the man who had turned it into a weapon. The silence was now real, no longer laced with the hidden hum of digital betrayal. Evelyn knew the coming weeks would be chaotic: investigations, legal battles, and the painful public dissection of her marriage. But she had the evidence, the clean hands, and the clear conscience of someone who had faced a profound systemic threat and dismantled it, not out of revenge, but out of necessity. She had chosen truth and professional ethics over a meticulously constructed lie. The final satisfaction came not from Daniel's ruin, but from the realization that the Evelyn profile, the Chimera AI had been building, the model predicting her compliance and stability, was fundamentally flawed. It had never accounted for the intellectual rigor and moral fortitude that defined her, the very qualities Daniel had dismissed as simple domestic traits. She had proven that the human capacity for justice and self-defense transcended even the most advanced predictive algorithms. She walked towards her car, the sound of car horns and city life replacing the sterile hum of her home office. The feeling of being watched was finally gone. She was Evelyn Reed, data security expert, whole and sovereign again, ready to face the world she had just fundamentally altered.
The initial chaos in the library subsided as Evelyn watched the major news networks cut into the livestream, their analysts scrambling to decipher the deluge of technical documents flowing onto their screens. The immediate fallout was spectacular. Kronos Defense's stock plummeted faster than anyone could calculate. The term Project Chimera began trending globally, instantly becoming synonymous with institutional betrayal. Regulatory bodies, from the FTC to the military oversight committees, issued immediate cease and desist orders. Evelyn knew her success was guaranteed by the principle of digital authenticity. The documentation she broadcasted included Daniel's encrypted signing keys and timestamps that perfectly matched Kronos' own internal version control, making denial utterly impossible. Evelyn logged out of the archaic university terminal, physically disconnecting the threat of her assault. She then initiated a pre-programmed timer on her encrypted drive before slipping it into a public mailbox addressed to a trusted, highly ethical former colleague at Nexus with strict instructions to only open it if she failed to make contact within 72 hours. This was her final personal failsafe, ensuring her professional integrity remained unimpeachable regardless of the immediate legal maelstrom. She needed to be invisible for the next crucial 48 hours, while the truth settled like toxic ash over the digital landscape. She didn't return home. Instead, she checked into a small, anonymous hotel miles from the city, paying in cash and turning off all of her personal devices. It was in this small, quiet room that the professional armor finally cracked. The victory felt cold and heavy, not liberating. She wasn't celebrating Daniel's spectacular ruin. She was grieving the loss of her life as she knew it. The years spent building a shared existence that was, in the end, nothing more than a meticulously maintained surveillance platform. The realization that she had been the subject of his professional ambition, not his partner, was the true, lingering wound. The next morning, the headlines confirmed the magnitude of the detonation. Defense contractor implodes over ethics breach, read one. Wife exposes husband's spyware project in dystopian tech scandal, read another. Kronos issued vague, frantic statements about unauthorized data insertion, but the evidence was too detailed, too overwhelming. Daniel's photo, rigid and shocked on the podium, was everywhere, the public face of corporate deceit. Evelyn realized that her best defense was her absolute transparency and her professional standing. She could not hide forever. She reactivated her secure professional phone and called her legal counsel, a veteran lawyer who specialized in whistleblower and corporate ethics cases. Her instructions were precise. I am ready to cooperate fully with all regulatory bodies. I will provide full access to my independent forensic evidence. My condition is that the focus remains solely on the deployment and ethical breach of Project Chimera. By positioning herself as the primary source and the primary victim, she seized control of the narrative before Kronos could attempt their inevitable counterattack, the smearing of her reputation. Her lawyer confirmed that Kronos was trying to float the narrative that Evelyn was a disgruntled, emotionally unstable wife who had stolen and manipulated data to frame her husband. But the defense was instantly gutted by the sheer technical elegance of the Chimera code itself, which Daniel had signed off on. Evelyn's forensic audit of her own clean network provided the objective, undeniable proof that she was only the recipient of the data stream, not the instigator. Her deep understanding of network integrity was now her shield. The official separation began immediately. Through her lawyer, Evelyn filed for divorce on grounds of professional misconduct and emotional abuse, citing the Chimera documents as proof of systemic betrayal. She initiated a change of ownership on their shared home, forcing the sale of the property. The house, their domestic sanctuary, was now a toxic asset, a symbol of their poisoned past. She did not want the walls that had listened. She wanted clean space, digital and physical. 3 months later, the legal dust began to settle. Kronos Defense was hit with unprecedented fines and lost all government contracts associated with predictive security. Daniel, stripped of his security clearance, faced multiple criminal fraud charges related to the misuse of his position and government resources. His reputation, built on years of calculated ambition, was irrevocably destroyed. A swift, total obliteration orchestrated by the patience and superior intellect of the woman he had treated as a non-sentient testing subject. Evelyn, now officially Dr. Evelyn Reed, single, moved into a minimalist apartment that contained no smart technology whatsoever. She resigned from Nexus, accepting a prestigious position as a chief ethics consultant for a major international regulatory body. Her new role was to prevent the creation and deployment of systems exactly like Project Chimera. She had not only survived the betrayal, but she had weaponized her experience to shape the future of digital security. Looking out over her new, unmonitored life, she reflected on the simple, devastating power of her opening realization. My husband did this. The statement had been a conclusion, a moment of profound recognition of betrayal, but it had also been the starting gun for her liberation. She had stared into the digital abyss of her marriage and found the courage and the code to dismantle it. Her new life wasn't one of bitter triumph, but of quiet, absolute control over her own narrative and her own network. The ghost was silenced, and Evelyn was finally, truly free.